The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem. All right, joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Michael Safai, managing partner at quantitative trading firm Dexterity Capital. Welcome, Michael. So we have a Fed meeting this afternoon. It could have some potential impact on price movements. So what are you looking out for today?
Well, it's kind of funny. I think everyone thinks us crypto traders are super sensitive to what the Fed does. And while it's certainly a factor we think about, it's something we've known a long time was coming. Everyone's been expecting rates to go up. So it's not really a big surprise. And in particular, our trading style is market neutral. So Fed action, as I said, is a factor, but it's not the biggest thing we worry about. We're more interested in what's happening kind of with crypto exchanges, what's happening in the trenches of trading, and what's happening in DeFi. So that's kind of where we spend our time and cycles learning and keeping an eye out.
Michael, I'm glad you said what you just said, because it's something I've been screaming about for a long time, that the Fed is not a big issue in crypto compared to where it is in other markets. But one issue that you brought up in your notes, at least, is that this bounce in Bitcoin that happened over the past couple of days may have been from flows out of DeFi, for instance, and into Bitcoin on its way to something else. Do you think that that's still the case? Is it going into Bitcoin and then eventually going to end up into fiat? We're seeing DeFi up now today. Has that stopped at any point?
Well, it's hard to say, and I think the note about DeFi is it's just a lot bouncier. It does tend to kind of maybe, I don't want to say overreact, but tends to kind of have an exacerbated reaction to what's happening in the market. And there's a lot of reasons for this. I think one of them is structural. One of the really unique things about cryptocurrency is you can margin things in things that aren't dollars or stable coins. And what that means is you can take a margin position in a coin like Solana, let's say, and you can margin it in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin drops 10%. Well, now the value of your margin has dropped 10%, and it's more likely for you to get liquidated, which we saw happen over the weekend to a lot of people. And the problem with altcoins is they often have less depth in their books than something like a Bitcoin or Ether. So you get kind of this downward spiral where the price drops on the DeFi tokens because Bitcoin dropped a little, and then liquidations happen, and so forth, so on and so forth. And that's kind of what we've seen happen over the weekend. I think people did move back into Bitcoin then, but they may be coming back now that they feel that cycle is kind of borne out, and people who are going to get liquidated have been.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, do you think that the sellers have finished selling, if you will? Has it come to an end, at least for the short term?
Short term is something that it's always hard to say what's going to happen. It's kind of the billion-dollar question, right? And I sadly am not a billionaire, so I can't give you a great answer. What I can say is that, we've been trading for over 4.5 years, and I am still often surprised by big price moves. I don't know where they come from. And even doing a postmortem, it's kind of hard to figure out where they came from. And that's, again, why we've adopted the market neutral thesis for our trading firm. With the one constant we've seen across all cryptocurrency markets is volatility. That has existed since the inception of Bitcoin, and it's always here in these markets. So for a market neutral stock like us, we can thrive during sell-offs. And I think it's a really good strategy given the nature of crypto.
Just turning to a different topic for a moment, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about ETH, which is, everyone's been talking about Bitcoin recently. I'd be curious to hear your outlook on ETH specifically. What do you expect to see this year? Is there anything about ETH that people aren't aware of that they should be?
So ETH and Bitcoin tend to be, we kind of put them in the same bucket, but there are slight differences. I can tell you straight away that when lenders are lending, ETH has a little bit of a premium over Bitcoin. It's just a bit more expensive. And that's because it is a bridge to so much of DeFi. And that's what kind of makes it an interesting product to trade, because it's something you have to get in and out of. It's hard to say what will happen with ETH over the course of the year. The cost of gas is remarkable right now. Anything to alleviate that's great. And I think it's going to really help L2s and other L1s thrive.
And in terms of the price of ETH and Bitcoin right now, is there anything you're seeing that we're not seeing in terms of volatility volumes, open interest? What kind of price action or price target are you looking at?
So we don't necessarily look at price targets, but we do observe volumes a lot. When you're a high-frequency shop like us and do a lot of turnover, volumes are key. And the things I've observed is that if you take this same week last year, there was probably 2 to 3x the volume on Bitcoin and ETH. And that's what we really care about. We want to see more volume. This was kind of a sell-off that wasn't too frothy, even though it was very sudden and kind of traumatic for some people. But the lack of volume compared to last year is kind of an interesting story right now.
Yeah, and in terms of the alts, in terms of the L2s and the likes, where are you seeing the volumes? Are you seeing any increases in any particular coins, or are they all down too? And are there any where you're seeing it dry up a lot faster, a lot more than you would have expected?
I think the alts that have thinner books, as I mentioned earlier, are kind of the ones that are struggling a bit. The ones that had thin books often had a little bit of volume, and suddenly they had a ton over the weekend. And that's hard to cope with because we saw some flash crashes in some tokens that had really promising projects, but the price just got hurt. Most of those are recovering. We've seen that, but that's kind of been the big impact on alts this past sell-off.